Everyone's been asking why Vecna is terrified of the cave Max hides in. But what if I told you the answer has been hiding in plain sight? In Star Wars? That's right. The Duffer Brothers themselves said Vecna shares a shocking similarity with Darth Vader, and it's the clue that finally explains his fear. In this video, we're going to dive into Henry Creel's past, the traumatic cave memory, the origins of the Mind Flayer, and why even the most powerful villain in Hawkins can't bring himself to step inside. And yes, we'll see how this all ties back to the Vader parallel that no one noticed. The first shadow. And the events teased to us this season in 1959 when Joyce was handing out flyers for a play. Give us the first clues about why Henry fears the cave. Let's break down exactly what happened in 1959 and the events that made Henry terrified to enter that place. This is why Vecna can't go into the caves in Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 1. Spoilers ahead, by the way. Why was Henry so scared? His fear isn't random, it's tied directly to his origin, and how Henry Creel came to possess the powers that would eventually lead him to the dark side. Before moving into the Creel house, we didn't know much about what happened to him or why his family relocated, but the stage play answers those questions, and Season 5, Volume 2 will dive even deeper. When Henry was a child, he disappeared for about 12 hours while living in Nevada. During that time, he was transported to a place called Dimension X, and it was here that his powers first emerged, confirming he wasn't born with them as many had assumed. This disappearance is exactly why he's so hesitant to enter the caves. The memory of what happened there is traumatic, and reliving it is something even the strongest part of him can't handle. While in Dimension X, Henry was confronted by darkness unlike anything he had ever known. Creatures so ungodly, they would shake even the bravest mind. It's the kind of transformative moment that reminds us of Darth Vader before Mustafar, the moment when Anakin's innocence ended and the path to darkness began. For Henry, that cave and Dimension X are his Mustafar, a place that symbolizes the exact moment he started losing his humanity. And it seems like this is exactly where the Mind Flayer first took hold of Henry, showing us that the entity might actually be the one in control, with Vecna acting as little more than a foot soldier, a puppet carrying out its will. This would put the Mind Flayer back at the very top of the villain hierarchy in the show, almost taking Stranger Things back to its roots in Seasons 1 and 2. Hopefully, that's the path the story follows. Henry's journey to this point began when interdimensional travel was being experimented on by the government in Nevada, and a staff member from the project defected, hiding equipment in the caves. When young Henry stumbled across it, the technology accidentally activated, transporting him to Dimension X. He survived the trip and returned home after 12 hours, but with altered blood and a personality forever changed. The fear we see in Henry in Season 5 Volume 1 shows that the pure, childlike version of Henry Creel still lingers inside, trying to protect the broken man from reliving the trauma of that moment. In a way, it's similar to Vader's hesitation before Mustafar. Even the most powerful figure can freeze in the place that marks the exact moment they lost their innocence. Vecna might sense that entering the cave could replay that moment, and his fear stops him. For now, it seems Max has found the one safe spot in Vecna's memories that he can't access. This also connects to Breener and how Henry ended up in Hawkins. After Henry disappeared and returned, he seemed under the Mind Flayer's control, starting to harm others. Breener had an intense interest in Dimension X because his father had once accidentally traveled there, with all his crew killed except him. Near death, he told Breener about the place, inspiring Breener's quest to find it and open a portal, obsessed with uncovering what damned his father. One major reason Henry ended up in Hawkins is that, back in Nevada, he nearly killed a classmate due to the darkness now inside him. The Creel family moved away from the area to escape the danger, settling in Hawkins for a fresh start. Henry eventually went to Hawkins' lab for Breener's study, where he discovered his blood was unlike any other human, just like Breener's father after returning from Dimension X. There, he also learned of his connection to the Upside Down, and it became clear that his powers emerged during that missing period. This is also where Breener's destructive influence showed itself, pushing Henry to harm others to grow stronger. At that point, Henry didn't fully want to harm anyone, showing that he wasn't entirely under control. The darkness hadn't completely overtaken him, And this was the moment the powerful being we know as Vecna truly began to take shape. The events of 1959 teased when Joyce was handing out flyers for the school play. Give us a glimpse of when Henry Creel crossed the point of no return and the darkness fully claimed him. By this time, Henry had grown close to a girl named Patty. When he looked into his mother's mind, he realized she may have unintentionally put the one person he truly cared about in danger by involving Breener. Henry's mother, Virginia, feared her son and wanted Breener to examine him more closely. As Henry saw through her perspective, he discovered that she had already told Breener about the darkness she sensed in him. When Breener pressed to uncover information about Patty, Virginia revealed her name, which sparked Henry's violent reaction. In that moment, he allowed the events that led to his mother and sister's deaths to unfold. A sign that he was now capable of inflicting pain on anyone who threatened him or those he loved. To Henry, his mother's actions were a betrayal he could not forgive. It was suggested that harming others would make Henry stronger, and this may have been the first time he drew power from such acts. This set the stage for Breener to target Patty, who was performing in Joyce's play at the time. Henry arrived at the school to try and protect her, but Breener was already there. Despite his efforts to warn her and get her to safety, Henry was simultaneously being pushed by Breener to see her as a threat, the so-called weak link preventing him from reaching his full potential. This ultimately culminated in Henry throwing Patty off the balcony during the play, and she was presumed dead. However, we eventually learned that Patty survived the fall, but by the time Henry realized it, the damage to his soul was already done. That moment is essentially where the last fragments of the boy he used to be disappeared, and the darker force guiding him tightened its grip. From that point on, Breener could shape him, and Henry followed the same destructive path that later explodes in Season 4's events. What makes Season 5 so interesting is that it finally peels back those layers and shows us the fragile human underneath the monster we've been watching for years. Vecna has always been framed as this unstoppable villain, not someone who ever had doubts, attachments, or vulnerabilities. And while I'm not looking for any sort of redemption arc, he is far too effective as a villain for that. Seeing how the darkness consumed him, step by step, adds weight to everything that is happening now. The stage play The First Shadow has always been canon, but Season 5 finally uses those events to connect the dots. The missing hours in Nevada, the experiments that opened gateways, and the childhood trauma he refuses to confront, all of it points back to the cave. His inability to step inside isn't a random plot detail. It's the literal birthplace of his transformation. And this is exactly where the Darth Vader parallel becomes undeniable. Vader avoids Mustafar because it's the place where Anakin died, the place where his deepest wound was carved. In the same way, Henry avoids the cave because it's where his transformation began, and where the human version of him was first broken. Both villains face the same kind of psychological scar. Their origin point isn't empowering, it's painful, and stepping back into it risks pulling the mask off the monster they've become. With only a handful of episodes left, it'll be fascinating to see if the show truly takes us inside Dimension X. A realm hinted to be fundamentally different from the Upside Down and possibly the true birthplace of the Mind Flayer. If Max or Holly end up traveling through it, the show could finally reveal whether Vecna is the mastermind, or just another puppet acting out someone else's will. One last thing before we wrap up. If Vecna really is the Stranger Things version of Darth Vader, the cave might not just hint at his past. It might hint at his future. In Star Wars, Vader's story ends where his humanity finally cracks through the armor the dark side built around him. And if the Duffer Brothers are following a similar pattern, Vecna's downfall might come from the same place he fears the most, the moment he became a monster. Whether that's the cave, Dimension X, or even the memory of the boy he used to be, the place that broke him might be the place that destroys him. So to bring it all together, the cave is the one place Henry cannot follow, because it represents the exact moment his life fractured. It's where he was altered, where the darkness touched him, and where the Mind Flayer found its opening. Just like Will, Henry was a child when the Shadow first claimed him, and in that sense, he was the first victim long before Hawkins ever knew something was wrong. And that's why Vecna refuses to enter the cave in Stranger Things Season 5. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives into the show, theories, character studies, and episode explainers, make sure to stick around because I'm just getting started. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you want covered next, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.